Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our May 29th live Q&A call. It's your host, James Cronk. I'm here in Guru Collective headquarters for Golf Industry Guru. Scott is in the technology room, which is, I think, 4 or 5 rooms away within our massive office space. And Scott is right now controlling the keys and the technology, because really technology is what we're talking about today, and all that it can and cannot do, because we can make you think that we are in Guru Collective head office with our background and our sound and our videos. But the reality is that, of course, as you know, Scott and I are still both doing this from our kitchen. But we are going to welcome someone else who's actually, I believe, in his childhood home kitchen, where he is coming to us live from Brampton, Ontario. And without further ado, let's bring in my guest today, Mr. Colin Weston, the host, creator, guru extraordinaire of the ModGolf Podcast. And Colin and I were just recently together in Ireland for the Golf Business Technology Conference in Belfast. And we were talking and listening and learning about all things tech in the world of golf. And Colin, it is just great to have you join me today, because I think that owners, operators, club managers, people that are working in the club golf business today, if they are not involved, aware, engaged, on top of what is all that's happening in tech in the golf business, they're going to get left behind. And so welcome to the live Q&A call of our Golf Industry Guru podcast.
Well, thank you, my friend. It is a pleasure to be back here. It's been, I guess, a year and a bit since I've been with your gig members before. It's, as you can see in the background here, yes, I've got the... it's not virtual, it is real. So this is the dining room of my childhood house that I grew up in beautiful Brampton, Ontario, just outside of Toronto. Flew back from Dublin to Toronto to hang out here a little bit and staying a little bit longer because I will be at the RBC Canadian Open as one of the media members. For some reason, I've managed to trick them into thinking I'm a golf journalist. So we'll keep that illusion alive, my friend. And I'll find those other stories, the technology and those behind the scenes the stories that I always like to find. So yeah, here we are.
Well, for any one of our listeners that is not currently following Colin on all of the various different mediums, including YouTube and his podcast and everything else, you need to do that, because you are a journalist, Colin. You find the most interesting people that I ever have come across in our industry, whether it's entrepreneurs, whether it's someone that's got a new putting aid that has invested their life savings, or someone that has been around for 20 years, exceeding expectations with delivering an experience. You have got an incredibly wide array gambit of individuals that you talk to in your ModGolf. So journalist extraordinaire.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you to say. And since day one with the tagline, when I decided to come up with a podcast in the golf innovation and entrepreneur space, when I was thinking about this in 2016, after our first golf venture in the event side, that was another story that would take an hour or so to tell, but ultimately we were going to get invested or acquired by Topgolf and TaylorMade Adidas. And then we ended up working as design consultants with Topgolf. So after 3 years of that, of up, down, and sideways, and then not having our first venture go where we hoped, and looking back 10 years ago, the technology wasn't in place, all the entertainment side and the engagement wasn't there yet. So that made complete sense. But that was the start of the journey. And then I realized, I looked at this, it's like, you know what? I know all these people in the golf industry. There's all these other podcasts out there talking about the future of work, innovation, and whatever industry. And no one was having these conversations in the $100 billion golf industry. And I thought, maybe I should tell those stories, even though A, I don't know how to make a podcast, B, I'm no one in the media space, C, I may really suck at this, and D, maybe there's only a couple of stories there. But I treated it as I do as an entrepreneur, as an experiment, and just launched it. had a friend of mine that had a business podcast that as an advisor and a mentor, you needed someone that pushes you. And he definitely gave me a kick in the butt and said, just do it rather than just talk about it for years. And away we went. And I met more and more people. And yes, it was about technology, about entertainment, and that intersection of all those things. But falling back on my design background as an architect and sustainability, and infusing all that into what we do, and that community building side, as you know, which you talk about all the time as a recurring theme on what you do with GIG and the good work that you do with the group also.
Well, and I think, Colin, what's interesting about your background, and I mean, how many podcasts now? Like, what season are you at? You're at?
Yeah, I'm halfway through season 17. So I do 12 episode seasons and then take a break because I do other work, whether it's consulting or other ventures we have that I do in the golf and the sport industry. We're coming up on the milestone of episode 200 pretty soon. So we'll be celebrating that. You got to celebrate those milestones as an entrepreneur and as a club and course owner. You've got to step back and pause with your staff and with your team, and you've got to celebrate those wins, no matter how small they are. And that's something that I neglected to do for years, and always striving for that next thing, that next goal. And you got to take a breath, and you've got to celebrate those things with the people around you that have helped make that happen. And I'm going to do that when we have episode 200 in a couple of weeks here.
That's exciting. Very exciting. Good for you. So, as I said, I do think what's fascinating about your background is that from an architectural background and from tech, you really were in the ground level back in the day when Topgolf was just becoming Topgolf and really was, and then for a while was the only game in town.
Yes.
And then, I'm going to jump forward to the conference that we just saw, we were just at in Europe. So Colin and I were both speaking at the Golf Business Technology Conference in Belfast. My session actually is not what we're going to talk about today, but my session was actually the counter session to all the technology sessions, because I was talking about, it doesn't matter what technology you have, if your people are not invested, if your people are not innovative, if you don't have your team involved, it's all going to be for naught. It's going to sit on the shelf. But really what we were there for and what we were learning and listening to was all of the amazing technology that's going on right now in the golf space, Colin. And once again, you've seen it on this journey. So I'm fascinated to kind of get your thoughts about how you've seen it over the last 200 episodes of podcasts, and you've seen it since the days when you were getting it going, about where you think it is now.
Well, since when I started this in 2017, so 8 years ago with ModGolf, and even when we started our first venture in 2013, like it feels like 50 years ago. Like the golf industry, it always has this tension because it is very traditional and there's a lot of Luddites out there, people that will hold on to the tradition. So there's a lot of resistance, but also there's this massive opportunity. A lot of people think I'm just this tech genius because what I've learned as the founder of Startup Vancouver and working with and advising and mentoring with hundreds, if not thousands of entrepreneurs in every single space, every single industry, and I start to apply that to the golf industry, they think that, where do you get all this from? And it's like, this is what people are doing, man. It's like, but if you want to think I'm a genius and a prognosticator, I'll happy to take that mantle if you're willing to give it to me. So I've always found that kind of that duality or tension exists within the golf industry. But the last 5 years, especially after COVID coming out the other side, as you've seen, James, also that we've just ramped up on the technology side, whether it's actually for club operations, the world that you really reside in, that you are that expert, and you and Scott are the gurus in, and everybody that's around you, that where I focus more, as you know, on that entertainment side, whether it's in the design side and in the sustainability side. So a lot of the things I'd like to talk about, the themes that I took away, maybe because we look at things through a slightly different lens from our approach to, or what we focus on in the golf industry, I guess I should say, that myself as a designer in architecture and urban design, in that sustainability side that I've worked on for decades, that's something that really intrigues me. And there was a lot of discussion around that. So that's one of the themes I'm happy to dig in here today, that I see really moving forward, that for a lot of the golf course owners and operators that are on the call today, that it's not the first time they've heard it, but this notion of climate resiliency. Your courses need to put in the effort and also the funds in your capital and operating budgets, that you're doing your 2, 5, 10-year forecasting, because we've seen it, whether it's in Ireland or in Florida, Los Angeles, up and down the West Coast, that there's beautiful golf holes that are going to be falling into the ocean. That's not hyperbole. That's true. So that's just one piece besides, between water and storms and just the kind of the heightened polarization of weather systems. We need to be more resilient, and you have to pick your spots. It's like, well, we don't have multi-million-dollar budgets. So where do we best put our money and our strategy in place? So I don't have all the answers, but we certainly saw some people there that did have some answers.
Well, it's one of the things that's interesting when you go to a global conference is A, how unique things are, and B, how they're the same.
Yes.
And that the challenges that are being faced in the Canadian golf industry are the same in the American golf industry, which is similar to the the Europe industry, and then other countries that are exploding with golf around the world. Now, in my opinion, they're at different levels of sophistication. Agreed. Right? Yep. And so there's no doubt that in North America, things are more sophisticated, so to speak, when it comes to governance or operations or even technology or the implementation of technology. I mean, there's still golf courses using pen and paper tee sheets around the world that don't even know what RevPat is or what, yield utilization even means, let alone in practice. So there's no doubt that there's some differences in sophistication or in development of their place. But that being said, the issues are still united. They're still the same. And so, Colin, what was I've got my own thoughts, but let's just get back to kind of technology in this conference. What was your kind of biggest takeaway that you took from, just to give some background to our listeners, 3 days, probably 30 to 40 speakers. It was very interesting, 20 minutes per session. I've never flown around the world to speak for 20 minutes. And so 40 speakers with 20-minute messages from all different types of walks of technology and different areas, and people from all over the world, and certainly people that are long-term, very established technology organizations, and then also some brand new kids on the block. So, Colin, what was your kind of takeaway in a big picture sense from your days in Belfast, besides how great Guinness is?
Well, at the conference, I didn't notice, because that's my first time in Ireland and then Scotland afterwards. So talking to the people that were attending, and so everybody knows, kind of stepping back, this was a kind of an intimate, curated business to business industry conference with about 200 delegates, I guess, about 150, 200 delegates. So we had one space, so there are no breakout rooms. So everyone is in the same space, and they did a great job of being able to network and mingle and really get to know each other and build those relationships. And so I found that, because it was that part of the world, that I would say about 80% of the people that were there were from either the UK or Europe. So for me, just seeing a different lens as far as how they embrace technology at their golf clubs and their businesses, the adoption curve is different. In some places a little bit farther ahead. In most cases, it's a little bit farther behind. I think it's more because of priorities, not because of the lack of ability to grasp the technology. A great example would be Handy-Caddy. That North America, that probably wouldn't be a viable business because there's not enough private clubs that still have their caddy programs in place. Whereas in Ireland, where Graham Curry, young man, the founder there, and great guy, I'm going to have him on the podcast sometime soon too, it's a viable business as far as up learning, I guess you could say, getting the quality of the caddies' performance up. And then, of course, that then ports over to the quality of the guest and the player experience and satisfaction that they have. and the other piece is the analytical side with the technology overlay, is making sure that you're able to utilize and optimize your caddy program too. So he was kind of a microcosm of this bigger theme I saw, that it's this combination of technology, but also human experience, and culture is something that you are so heavily involved in and tied into, as far as the people and the culture. And seeing DJ Flanders, VP from True International, with his talk, and he was on my panel, the DEI panel, and he ran through all 4 different demographics, from boomers to Gen X and Gen Y, and then down, and what their priorities are, and what as far as staff, as far as leadership, as far as what's important to them in life, what's not important. I've seen one of your very engaging talks that you had kind of similar themes to that also, but this had nothing at all to do with technology, but it also did. The technology can help fuel that, can help amplify that and improve that situation. So I found really this intersection between technology and human-centric design is something that all of your gig members with their golf courses is really what they need to move those 2 pieces forward. Because one of the warnings, and you've had this warning too, that the golf industry was very fortunate with COVID. One of the good things that came out of it, but you can't get complacent, because that was a bit of a gift. And now 5 years later, there are golf courses that haven't changed. They've just gone back to the old habits, and they're already starting to see that they're dwindling, or they're starting to pull back on the success and their tee sheets being full. So you've always got to be, there's that innovator's dilemma. You always have to make sure you're continuing to innovate, or at least embracing and bringing in innovative partners as you move forward. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think, when I try to bring all of the different topics and scope back to our gig members, or to the golf industry, the owner, operator, club manager, that's, okay, I got 40 emails to answer, and Billy didn't show up tomorrow he's not going to show up tomorrow to pick the range. So, what do I care about gamification? But if you want to look at it from a big picture standpoint, I would think that I had some takeaways that were very evident to me about a few things. Number one is data. And I would put out there that there has never been a time. Well, I mean, this is a stupid statement, so I'm going to say it anyway. It's just so obvious, apple pie. But it's like, there's never been more data available to us to make better decisions.
Yes.
And so my comment would be, or my point would be, is that if you're not using data and actively finding and gathering, I used John McCormick's session in club benchmarking.
I was going to mention him too, yeah.
Club benchmarking is the same whether you're in Australia with our partners from GBAS, whether you are in the United States with Ray Cronin and the group and his crew, whether or not you're in the UK with John and his, and whether you're using club benchmarking or Metolius or a variety of different data people that are out there that can give you information, that if you're not making decisions based on data, then you're going to be swinging for home runs without any idea about what's coming. There's just so much information out there that you can use to your advantage. Number one. So to me, it was data. Number one. Number two, it was obviously AI. Obviously AI. And we're going to get into that, because there's like the pros and cons of AI. Because to me, it's not just like, oh, thank God AI's here. Aren't we going to be so lucky? It's just like, you better be aware of the good and the bad that AI can happen, right, in your program. And then the other thing I would just add is how AI is being used to enhance the golfer experience. I referred to T-Box, Jeff Hansen, one of the last sessions. I had never heard of that organization. They're and they've got places popping up all over the place. And what they are doing with player development, customization, club fitting, mental game, AI technology, bringing that all together to help consumer golfers get better, why would someone go to your driving range and take a lesson from Bill when they can go down the street and walk into a tee box facility and, have everything at their fingertips 24/7? And by the way, there's pros and cons to that. I'm not
Yeah.
But my point is that if you are a teaching professional and you're not finding ways to incorporate technology into your lesson plan, into your analysis, into your, it's like the conversation about Top Tracer and TrackMan, right? And all that stuff. So I'll just stop there for a minute, Colin. What were some of the things, what were some of the sessions that resonated with you, or the technology that resonated with you?
Yeah, well, definitely that AI piece, and we'll get into that. And AI, I know our friend Clive May, who he'd probably get mad if he's on right now. He might get mad at me saying this, but it's a tool. It's not a business solution. Very much like blockchain was a few years ago, right? It's a tool to harness, but it's not a business. So with AI, that yes, it is going to change so many aspects of how golf courses are run, how they're operated, and how they're staffed, how that experience is heightened, how tee time booking is done, and that's already starting to take place. How golf travel is being done, right? So all these pieces are going to happen. So it's a matter of being able to utilize that, once again, to combine that with that human experience, so that human-centric design. So to kind of step back and answer your question, one of the things that one of the talks in the companies that I really liked, and they're out of Sweden, I think, and that was Husqvarna. Of course, they're in so many different industries, but with their talk there with on the robotic revolution. So it really resonates with me because, once again, my sustainability background and utilization, we've talked about this with golf courses, getting back to being able to then track where people are actually hitting the balls. So as far as that sustainability piece, as far as water usage, as far as pesticides, and even the amount of labor put in, if no one's hitting balls in that area, it doesn't need to be pretty. Like, just keep that. And that's starting to prove out over the last while. You're getting those data sets, and there's other companies that are doing that. But then to actually physically maintain the course, and I like the way they position this. So you don't have to worry about, the robots are going to take over the world, that we're not going all Terminator with this thing, that the kind of the robotic mowing that's being done is so precise now. The fact that it's geolocated and even triangulated right on the golf course down to the millimeter of the cutting, that doing what would be kind of the low skill and high effort and cost in time of mowing fairways, for example, where that then frees up time for the agronomists and the head groundskeeper and everybody else to focus on the high skilled areas, tee boxes, greens, all of those pieces, bunkers, all that cutting, all that handwork that has to be done, that takes a lot of experience and skill. So I see that as being a real blessing to golf course owners and operators. And I believe, I'm not doing this as a sales pitch for Husqvarna at all, but I believe they have a lease program also. So if you don't have the capital budget to buy all these mowers, and I'm sure it'll be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe it's less than that, but ultimately, if you do this lease program, that you're basically renting the machine. So I see that savings on labor, and you know this way better than I do, the difficulty of getting skilled and even unskilled labor, whether it's on the hospitality side, whether it's on the maintenance side, that golf courses all over the world struggle with getting people to work and then to retain them. So if you can take some of those jobs off the table and use technology to do that, then I know that the industry will definitely benefit. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on what they're doing.
Well, here's my question for you. Have you ever been in a driverless car?
I have not yet. It's a bit frightening, but I have not.
Frightening, right? It is frightening. Do you think that one day soon we will have driverless taxis or driverless cars at some point?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think absolutely.
So I guess how I would kind of parlay that is, why would we think that one day soon we're not going to have robotic mowers? right? Because when Husqvarna or Toro or John Deere, I mean, these organizations that are billion-dollar companies. What was fast about Husqvarna, because we don't think about I don't go to my local Canadian Tire and ask about, can I buy a Husqvarna?
Right.
They may be for sale there, but it's not like it's at the top of my mind.
Right.
But what was fascinating about the fact that they've been doing robotic mowers in the landscaping space for like 2 decades.
Yes.
And what was great about that presentation was they kind of walked us through the history of robotic mowers to where they are today, and then started giving us real examples of real golf courses in the UK that are actively using their robotic mower program, and the outcome, the results, the data, the savings, the financial wherewithal that makes it make sense for whatever might be that case. So, there's some golf courses I've been to in my local area that have got little robotic mowers out there in the driving range, or they got a ball picker or whatever.
Yes.
And I've certainly had lots of conversations with a variety of different companies that do that. But I guess my let's just bring it back to that. It's incumbent upon ourselves as operators to make sure that we're not forgetting about these advancements, to make sure that we're not learning everything we can about these advancements. And we don't have to be the first club on the street to have 9 automated mowers mowing at midnight with lights on them. But let's not be the last. Let's not be the last club on the street that is not. And we can, with all the technology we're talking about, you can take that same piece of example. We talk about Notify. We've talked about this before. We've had them on our show. I'm a big fan of Notify and Jake Gordon and their technology, but they're not the only game in town. There is lots of other automated wait list, apps or tee sheet providers that have some of this built in to it. Now, Jake and his team have done a fantastic job from a sales and a marketing standpoint, and they're going to continue to be in that market. But I guess I would take my point is that if you're a club operator and you don't have a way to fill last minute tee times with some kind of technology, no matter who it is, whether it's Notify or anybody else, then what are you doing? Because at the end of the day, there's enough no one's sitting there saying, and once again, maybe you don't have a no-show problem, but there's enough data out there in the generalized congregate, of golf courses that will tell you that there is a no-show problem.
Yes.
And there's supposedly $1 billion being left on the table. Now, some of that might be marketing hyperbole, but at the end of the day, let's look at our own tee sheets over the course of our busy period peak time and say, could we have filled in 20, 30, 40, 50 tee times, individual spots over the last 5 months at $100 a piece? And if it's going to cost me half of that, am I not on the top of the game? You know what I mean? So anyway, that was my little rant there about that, Colin. But that's one of the things that refreshed my memory about being at that conference was there was so many different things that people are talking about. And as owner operators, as managers, we got to find some time to dig into this stuff.
It will seem quite overwhelming.
Yes.
And when you talk about that adoption, there is just my work in the kind of the tech startup world, and there's this classic graph called the technology adoption curve. You may have seen it. So over time, and it starts out when you first launch something, whether it's an iPhone back in the first day back in whatever 2009 or so. So you've got this curve that starts out very, very shallow and then kind of goes up, and it's basically a hump and then down the other side. So you get that first 9% or so as the innovators, those people that don't care what, like a flat screen TV back in the day that would cost $20,000, but they didn't care. It may break down, but they were the first to have it, and they embraced the technology. And then you've got this second group, the first third, as the kind of the early majority. Once the technology is established, other people are buying it. Let's use robotic mowers as an example. I think for most golf courses, it probably still is like it's past the first pioneers and innovators, that first 10%. It's getting into that early majority, but it's not at that hump yet that you get into late majority where everybody adopts it, just like we do with our smartphones here now. And then you've got at the end, you've got that 10% that are the laggards. that rather than this phone, if they can still actually have one that's attached to their wall with a big curly wire to it, and you actually dial like this, they would still be doing that if they could. So, and they'll never change. But that early and late majority is with a lot of the golf course operators and owners are getting into that late majority of the whatever, the number of the courses around the world that are kind of getting to that cresting to that critical mass and adopting technology. And yeah, you can't adopt all the technologies at once. Maybe you can tell me that it seems to me I'm not in that industry as deeply as you are, but it seems incumbent upon them, and they're big enough now, even if you're just a sole owner and operator, that you should have someone that is your chief technology officer. You need to have a CTO, because making those decisions so you can start to kind of sift through all the options that are out there. And yeah, there are some players that are bright and shiny and they may not be able to deliver the goods, and they can't deliver the goods. And we get that all the time, that then you're spooked by that, and because you've had something that didn't work out, and then you're more reluctant to try something even though you need to keep moving forward. So if you have someone on staff, even if that's a part-time role or a fractional role, or someone has another role within the company, but that's their area of expertise and passion, that's the person that can vet all the technology. And then you can start to decide the ones you want to do a pilot with, and start to go out on, on a couple of dates and see where that goes, rather than thinking you need to make this massive investment that it may bite you in the backside because it was the wrong move at the wrong time, and maybe just not suited for the profile of your operations.
Well, you're 100% correct, and I would add on a couple things there. I think let's just go back to the beginning. It is overwhelming, right? I mean, I think that when we get pushback on our platforms from people that were trying to engage and bring onto our platform, it's not like we don't need staff training. It's not like we don't believe in health and safety. It's not like we don't want to protect our liability and reduce our costs. They're like, I don't know if I can get my people to, do one more thing. It's just like, I think they're already overwhelmed. We just put in a new T-sheet system, or we just, we're integrating our F&B, or, whatever it is, our members won't do something. So, I mean, that was one of the sessions that I gave, is about how to create change, how to embrace innovation in your organization. Because if your people won't constantly be trying to innovate, you're going to be left behind. Now, I want to go to what you said. It's not reasonable for a mom and pop to have a CTO. Yes. It's reasonable for a multi-course operator that's got 30 golf courses to have a chief technology officer.
Definitely.
But even if you've got a tech nerd that works in the back shop, make some 20-year-old your CTO on an honorarium basis, give them free ice cream. But at the end of the day, have it in your weekly agenda or your monthly meeting agenda that says technology, and then just have a conversation about what technology is out there. Because there's, whether we're talking about improving food and beverage costs and menu organization, or whether we're talking, I'm a big fan of CourseRev. I'm a big fan of Mana. I'm a big fan of Dell and their voice automated answering service in 175 languages that can literally take a guest through 55 questions before they get to the point where they may or may not actually need to talk to a person.
Yes.
Now, we're going to talk about that in a second, a bit more about that in a second. But it's like using a chatbot, Colin. Like why would a golf club not have its own chatbot on its website for its members or customers to ask simple questions like, what's traffic like if I try to come there on a Friday afternoon?
Yep.
That's a $20 a month solution, is to have your own chatbot on your website, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, it's interesting too, the demographic that we saw at the conference of the 200 or so people that were there. It's not a shocker. You and I were kind of like the average age, right? And mostly white, mostly male. Yes, we did have conversations around diversity, and but ultimately the people in the room, the decision makers that were there, were 85% predominantly older white guys. So as far as what's changing, and you talk about this, this, whether it's staffing and to retain younger people to come in and empower them so you don't lose them, whether it's people that are playing the game. So both on the industry side and the recreational golf side, that everybody coming up now, pretty much anybody under 30 years old is a digital native now. Like, it isn't just teenagers anymore. Like, time passes and we keep getting older. So, and those are going to start to fill the senior leadership roles. And they're already starting to do that in some cases with some younger people. So that is just table stakes. That is where things not are going. They already are. And so if you're resistant and reluctant because you're a little bit older, you may think, oh, maybe I only have your mom and pop, like you said, I've only maybe got 5 or 10, 15 years in this, and I don't have the energy or the desire or the capacity, and perhaps I want to sell it or we'll just shutter it or whatever that is incumbent on them to empower those younger people so that they can start making those decisions on their behalf. Like you had talked about, maybe it's with ice cream, maybe it's just giving them responsibility that allows them to take their careers to the next level.
And even this is certainly one of the things that we've learned in working with some of our clients, is that even going to your current suppliers and asking them what technology they have, they can use, you can use, they can make sure that you're, first of all, maximizing your platforms, maximizing your POS system, finding out what POS system is using AI, finding out how, there's a whole session we could do about Google and about, tee time booking on Google. There's all these things that are going on right now in the industry. And, you talk about Terminator. Here's my worry, Colin. And here's my worry. And let's just start talking about AI a little bit, because let's talk about answering services that are automated, like a computer generated person, that's saying, how can I help you today, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Well, there's going to be people that are going to be like I literally, like 3 weeks ago, got on the phone with some company and I literally said, are you a real person? Right? Because I thought I was talking to a chatbot. Right. And yet there are studies that show that people under the age of 30 don't want to talk to a real person. They want to book online. They want to do things automated. They have no problem talking to an automated voice answering system, as long as it's efficient and it's organized. And instead of pressing 3, you just actually tell it what you want it to do. And then the voice system says, well, I don't have a tea time on Saturday at 10 a.m., but I've got one at 2 p.m. I've got one at 3 p.m., or I can get you at Sunday at 10 a.m. I mean, imagine, instead of you having a staff person going on your tee sheet or someone searching all those buttons, right? Our good friend Clive with Golf AI, our friends at TrackMan, the guys at T-Box, our buddies at Course Rev, Matoli, like the list goes on and on. We can talk about all the companies right now. And what I'm fascinated by is because they are tech geniuses, right? Like my point is that if we're the operators and the owners and we're slow to embrace technology, they're going to blow by us, right? And this technology is coming, it's happening. And the consumer is going to use it, seek it out, take advantage of it. And those people that are embracing it and are implementing it are going to be the winners in that race, in my humble opinion. I also think, though, that there are lots of dangerous paths about, AI and about, I just listened to a great session with Don and Jay on Golf Business Live, talking about, the concerns about data and AI. How do I know that's actually the best price that, is there? How do I trust it? And that was my thing that came out of that big conversation about AI that we learned was, and Jay said it, as Jay Karen, of course, NGCOA United States Executive Director, CEO, in his presentation, my favorite takeaway was that he kind of said, it's going to be about who you trust.
Yes.
Because there's a lot out there of that AI stuff that can be manipulated and can be, nefarious individuals can take advantage of us.
Well, to that point, when I had Clive in Golf AI on the ModGolf podcast about 6 months ago, he asked permission to do this. He hasn't released it, but he has these avatars, these voices of different people in the golf industry, whether the kind of the old Scottish guy, the Japanese guru, the female golf influencer, the long drive guy. So he's got all these different voices that he has. And he asked me, he says, "Hey, do you want me for fun, and we can do it on the podcast live, to create an avatar of my voice?" And I went, "Sure, go for it." So he didn't need much of a sample set. We pulled down an episode or two of the ModGolf podcast. And then the first time I heard it was when we were live, and it was frightening. The fact, and I can tell the difference between my voice, but it's there. But to your point, it's that trust. What do you actually do with that thing? Once again, it's a tool. He's in the process of finding the best ways to harness AI in the golf industry to solve problems, to enhance experiences. And he's still on that journey. I think he's honing in on a couple of them, but he's still got some work to do. But it comes down to the T word again, with trust. I've spent 8 years working very hard to be consistent and earning trust in the industry. But to lose that, it doesn't take much. Right? So you have to be just very careful with there. So I guess where I'm going with this is having this AI generated avatar of myself. I'll never let that be out there on his platform, because who knows, maybe that could scale. It's like cloning myself. But on the other hand, it's also diluting myself. Maybe some people may say, well, you can't put that genie back in the bottle now. It's kind of out there, and it's going to be out there for more people. But one thing that AI hasn't done yet, and perhaps it's still in its infancy, so it's going to get better as it continues to learn as the learning language model, is that creative side. Like, even I use AI for doing a lot of production work for me on the video and the audio side. But ultimately, the creative side, even choosing guests, you made a nice complimentary comment of some of the guests that I've had and where I found them. That's just through relationships that I built up, myself being curious and just researching in certain areas that may not even be in the golf industry, and just finding these connections, and then taking ModGolf as that thread that kind of weaves them all together. And that builds trust and an interest and value, because I'm giving people information that is of value. So I know I kind of got off on a tangent here, but can AI solve that? Will it be able to solve that? I don't know yet. I think it's going to improve, but ultimately it boils down to, again, the trust factor that you get on your course, that customer experience. And I don't know if AI can perhaps heighten that or solve some of the issues, very much like I talked about with the robotic mower, perhaps doing those repetitive tasks and do those in a heightened way. And that's where the value is. And then the people can then focus on those high touch pieces that are out there on the golf course and in the pro shop.
Yeah, I think that let's bring it back down to the ground level of, like, what do I do tomorrow? I've got a full tee sheet. I've got a tournament on Saturday. I've got a newsletter to write. I've got 3 staff members that missed the orientation, and they start next week, and I don't know how I'm going to get them trained.
Right.
So, we use talking head avatars and what you just described with Clive to produce training videos for our clients, so that I can take 1 minute of GM Susan talking into an iPhone, and then I can make 22 minutes of training that Susan can send to her staff, that's her message, right? That,
yes.
And now I believe at the moment that we should be telling people this is AI generated. I believe that there should be a little disclaimer on the bottom. And I think that when we're doing internal staff training, they know that, it's like, they know it's not perfect. They know, hey, we're making this for you. And some people use a talking head avatar. Some people use the GM themselves. Some people use animation. It doesn't really matter. But But I do know that those staff is going to get 22 minutes of training that they would never have gotten otherwise, because Susan has no 22 minutes available to her next week when
Right.
she's running around trying to get the golf course going, right? So that to me is using AI to a benefit. I know that I can go on to ChatGPT and ask it to write me a sales script for my golf shop staff to sell more shoes, and I can do it in 22 seconds, and then I can say turn that into a memo and email it to all my golf shop staff. Why would I not do that if it's going to help my operation, right? So there are, and once again, I know that I can use an organization like Price Swing or Metolius or a bunch of others, club benchmarking, give them my data. They can use their AI customized generative tools to give me valuable information to help me make more money in my business. Why would I not do that? Right? So there are real live, real world, real today, inexpensive ways to use AI. Now, Clive will talk about the day, and I loved Clive's presentation. I thought it was very thought-provoking. And I think that what's fascinating about it is when someone says that in the future on my iPhone, or actually not even my iPhone, it'll just be talking into my head. It'll be talking into my head. It'll say, James, you've got 170 yards. It's uphill 5 degrees. The wind is blowing 20 miles an hour. You've been hitting your 7-iron 20 degrees or 20 feet less than you normally do because you drank too many Guinness last night. So obviously you're too tired. And so I recommend you hit a 6-iron. Like, that's what they're talking about, right? And when you talk about what like T-Box and some of the TrackMan and InRange and some of the technology guys are doing with that data, it's unbelievable, right? Where they're able to track every single shot, every single aspect of it, but then turn that into information that's going to help you make a better decision, a different decision.
And that's the key. And I've getting back to that human experience again, and myself, I embrace technology very deeply. But I've found out on the golf course, whether it's using Arco sensors or some of the other apps that are out there, so you can make better decisions out there. All of a sudden you're back on this thing and you're looking down, and it takes away from the experience of engaging with the 3 people that are with you. And if you don't know them, they may think you're one of those jerks that's on their phone all the time, where all I'm just doing is trying to get some data. I know now with actually, if you had an Apple Watch, it's more subtle and seamless rather than pulling your phone out all the time. But I had the other experience where I've got like 6 rangefinders. Do you think I packed even one of them for the 9 rounds of golf I played in Ireland and Scotland? Nope. Did I, of course, that I was too cheap. It was a bit of a test because in Canada here with our mobile carriers, they charge ridiculous amounts of money for your daily usage when you're international. And I didn't get an eSIM. So I did it more out of a spite and a challenge that I was away for 20 days. And I had my phone on airplane mode and just getting Wi-Fi, and I did it, man. I did it. But the thing is, if I'm on a golf course, then of course I'm not able to pull in any information. So where I'm going with this is, of course, we're playing courses that's windy, blind shots. I don't even know where I'm going sometimes. I've never played the course before. We don't have a caddy. I just did the old thing. It's like, oh, there's the 150. Walk back 9 steps. That's the length. See the elevation. See how it's running out, bit of wind in my face, and just use my natural database. And more times than not, I managed to hit it. And maybe that is because I've used Arco so much and I know the proper clubs I should hit now. So there could be something of that. But in some ways, it was kind of liberating. I know it was like a complete Luddite thing to say and traditional, but it was kind of nice in some ways that I didn't use any technology there. So where I'm going with this is that seamless, frictionless experience, that UX, that user experience on the course or during training just needs to get better. And it will get better. It's continuing to do that. So right now, the interface isn't quite where it needs to be. Like you said, eventually it will be in our head. There'll be no device in between. There'll be no third-party hardware that we're worrying about on our wrists or in our hands. that will happen. So that's where that needs to go for that experience in my mind, because it just takes away from the experience on course. But, and we'll get into this, I don't know what theme you want to talk about next with the minutes we have left, but the integration of gamification and on golf courses. So combining that with green grass experiences for club owners and operators, and all of them they're doing it now, whether it's amplifying, enhancing if they're private with their range facilities that they have, because the members are demanding that now and willing to pay for that, or whether it's bringing in what we have with in-range or now simulators inside of for the off hours when it's cold and rainy and dark, and just being able to monetize that and increase that stickiness at the golf courses now that we've been seeing for a couple of years. So I'd like to get your thoughts on that also, as far as what we saw with the gamification with TJ Shear and what he's doing there with his offering there, which is a smash swing, I believe. It was kind of like a scaled down version of what TGL has. Rather than a 60-foot screen, he's got a 25-foot screen, but still it's massive. So that whole gamification side, how to embed that to increase more retention, that stickiness, so people stick around longer, and increase your revenue and multiple revenue streams.
Well, I thought there was some. Thanks. It's a great lead in, because I think it's a very valuable topic, because when you go to conferences or you have put 400 owners and operators together, there's going to be a session about how to gamify your range. And there's going to be a session about, the investment of 500 grand turns into 3 million, 5 years later.
Right.
I was fascinated by the numbers about Topgolf's declining revenues.
Yes.
It makes me want to, for someone that is considering gamifying their driving range, I think it requires a lot of due diligence. I think that being very clear about who you are, who's your customer, who's your market, TJ and his platform, there are lots of, Scott's behind the scenes right now, but 2 days ago he was in PopStroke, right? Having that putting experience, right? That is like the other variety version of doing that non-traditional green grass golf. Now,
yes,
Colin, I unfortunately, I'm normally a glass half full individual almost all the time, but I'm still a little suspect of these great claims being made all the time that somehow, a non-golf, non-green grass, screen golf is turning into green grass golfers. I am. Still, when I see someone step on the first tee in stilettos, I will change my opinion. But at the end of the day, like I still have a difficult time because you talk about the green grass experience, that getting away, being outside. We're not supposed to be on our phones. There's a place for technology, but I believe that what makes golf great is that walking the 18 holes with 3 other people and talking. And not being on our phones and doing everything else. So I thought that was very interesting. I think that what is cool is that there is other technology that's out there that can allow people to implement whatever type of gamification they want to bring to their facility, whether it's a simulator in the old banquet room or whether it is, TrackMan on the driving range, or whether it is Smash Swing or PopStroke or whatever else it might be, right? I mean, I think you got to be very clear about your market, very clear about who you are, and very clear about how this is going to enhance your ultimate promise of your service delivery, and that it's not just a guaranteed if you spend it they will come. I do worry about that attitude.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all. I completely agree. You have to do your due diligence and really question your why. Why are you doing it? You're just doing it because everybody else is doing it. And you look at the opportunities out there that we hadn't talked about, but Sir Nick Faldo was there and spoke for a couple of days. And
I don't know if you know this, but I was his caddy.
Yeah. Yes, you were. I took the picture. That's right, and sent it to you, and you posted that.
I carried Nick's bucket of balls about 10 yards from the chipping area to the bunker.
Official caddy. You were looping for him there, man. You were looping for him. And with the entrepreneurial venture that he's partnering with, Himalayas Golf, is golf in small spaces. And just by the name, it isn't one size fits all. So they're looking at these 6-hole or par 3 courses that are night lit. 8 a.m. Golf is doing the same thing. Justin Timberlake is leading the charge there with 3s. They've got 2 of those built in the States, and they're looking to scale that up. So that could be a
park golf, Colin. Free golf in parks. I mean, there are no shortage of growing the game kind of efforts like this that's reinventing the game of golf. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So to that point, there is this disconnect and a bit of this myth that Top Golf and Screen Golf will then translate if you've got and Top Golf has done the numbers, and I worked for them as a consultant, so I was privy to this information pre-COVID, that in their studies and their white papers, that 50% of the people that were playing at Top Golf, of the 20 million people, let's say in 2018, half of those people identify as non-golfers, meaning they've never picked up a golf club before. Maybe they do, once or twice a year, but don't really play. They're not golfers. They're people that play golf occasionally. So the hope always was, and I'm sure this was the story that Callaway told themselves, is what, of course, the backstory was, I think about 2011 or so, they invested in Top Golf, owned 10, 15% of them, had all their clubs, all their balls in there. So had told themselves this story that the first time people are playing golf, they're seeing our golf clubs, they're seeing our balls, they're associating that with a fun time with their friends. So then when 5%, 10%, 20% of those come to the funnel and are going to then graduate and walk through the door for a green grass experience, and they'll go to the PGA Superstore or Golf Town here in Canada, and they see all these clubs and they're paralyzed by choice, and the price is all the same, and they see Callaway and go, I had a good experience there, I'm going to buy those. I think that's the story they were telling themselves. That is never translated at all. And now you see they're actually breaking the companies up again into 2 separate entities. And as you said, Top Golf is flatlining. I wouldn't say it's on the decline, but it's flatlining because now there's more competition. The fact their technology with the RFID chip balls is not their barrier to entry anymore. Everybody with all of the digital technology can play that game. But these smaller golf experiences that are real golf, whether it's putting on a real putting green, chipping and doing it, and you're gamifying that is that funnel that then will get people on a course where the Top Golf is not. So I think golf courses, owners and operators, that they've got an extra half an acre that's situated, and how are we going to use that the best way of doing something like one of the half a dozen offerings that Golf in Small Spaces has, or what Threes is doing, that you're able to then put that in and it complements. So kids and families could spend more time there. They can learn the proper skills and that foundation that they need at golf while having a good time, while increasing your F&B revenue too. Win, win, win. So that's where I see this real opportunity, not necessarily in having extra bays of simulators that are in the basement of your clubhouse. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I don't think that's good. That's not going to grow the game. But doing these other pieces for these off hours, and then families can come in and you can do other things, I think that's where the synergy lies, and that's starting to be realized now.
And you said it earlier on, which is about, being clear about your why, being clear about what are you all about. And let's not kid ourselves, because it is very positive, right? We are in a very positive market right now. The golf industry is booming. Last year, record number of rounds of golf, record number of participation. I thought, we saw a lot of positive people at that conference in Belfast, Colin, that have a lot of excitement about the future of the game, and as they should. I think to bring it back to our listeners, what I would just implore you to consider is, who is leading the tech conversation in your organization? Maybe it's you. If it's not you, find someone to do it. what does that tech conversation look like? Like what are we exploring? When are we exploring it? What are the areas that we think we can use technology to help our business be better, right? Like it doesn't need to be building $1 million driving range, but it could just simply be, looking at our data or our tee sheet or yield utilization or our menu structuring, whatever it might be. And there is technology and services and platforms out there to help you. And then not to be afraid of embracing these new technologies that are because there are success stories out there of people that you can talk to. I have not talked to someone, Colin, this is the business we're in the last couple of years. I've not talked to someone and said that was the dumbest thing I ever did. They might have said it was hard. They might have said it took a while to get the curve. They might have said my staff were resistant for the first 3 months. My superintendent never opened up the computer. But no one ever said, we didn't get value and it didn't help us, our business, and it didn't give an ROI at the end of it. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for, to use technology to help us improve our business so that we make more money. Last thoughts from you, Colin.
Well, change, cultural change, technology change, and how those are woven together here. Change is uncomfortable.
Yes.
Sometimes it can be painful, but it's discomfort. And I've learned this in the hot yoga studio. We talk about is like, pain's not good if it hurts, like really hurts, but discomfort and struggle, that's okay, because that means things are changing, and even at a molecular basis, like level. So golf course owners and operators out there, all the gig members, you have to, you've heard, I didn't this one, you've heard it before, but you have to become comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's, change is inevitable. It is happening. And don't just do it for the sake of doing it. As you touched on, what is your why? In Japan, they call it your ikigai. What is your purpose and your passion, and how do you do that use that to make money also, right? How do these things all come together that kind of determines or defines your why of what it is with your identity, your stamp for your course, your character, what it means with the culture, and how technology can amplify that and reinforce that, not get away. You don't want to lose the essence of who you are and why you do it. So that's why you need the right person in place to help you navigate that within your organization.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I know, Colin, on behalf of our listeners, thank you for joining us. They can reach you, I know, on all social media platforms. The ModGolf Podcast, Colin Weston. I got a little pain there when you even said the words hot yoga. But the reality is that, of course, there is lots to learn, to try new things. And for those of you that are listening, you're already at the forefront of implementing new ideas because you're listening to a podcast about technology and how it can improve your business. Colin, thanks so much for being our guest today.
It is my pleasure, James, as always. Welcome to come back anytime you want me.
Well, we will have you back, and I know you're going to go be a journalist and do some reporting at the Canadian Open, so that's fantastic. Everyone, you'll hear her stories, and if you haven't seen Colin's 17-day Ireland vlog, you should check it out on wherever you watch your YouTube and everything else. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to having you again next time. We will see you on the inside.